Everybody's talking about the economy. It's now weighing heavily on the minds of millions of Americans. A new CBS News New York Times poll shows that 67% of Americans believe the economy is getting worse, while only 3% believe it's getting better. Early show national correspondent Jeff Glor is at the New York Stock Exchange. Good morning, Jeff.
Hey, Maggie, good morning to you. Yeah, it's an anxious day here on Wall Street once again. The Dow is at its lowest level in more than 2 years. The S&P at its lowest level since 2005. And this is not the only place. There are issues.
If you want a piece of negative economic news, take your pick. There's new information on inflation, showing the producer price index, what companies pay for things like food and gas at the wholesale level. It's rising at its fastest rate in 27 years. That means if you're making a veggie omelet for breakfast, you better savor every bite. The eggs cost companies 11.6% more than last year, the vegetables 14.7%, and those costs get passed on to you. By the way, that's not even counting if you drive to pick everything up. Gas prices up 26% in that same period.
I'm still in shock, actually.
Housing prices are down 15%, and the economy has lost jobs for 6 months in a row.
We've been here since 4:30 in the morning. Have you? Oh, Lord. Relax, you idiots. Let's not fight.
Again, there was anger at an IndyMac bank in California as nervous customers hoped to get their money out. They swarmed the bank for the second day in a row.
I got mortgage payment due, car payments due. How am I going to make those payments?
All of this a result of two sustained shocks still hitting our financial system.
The first is the housing crisis and the credit crunch. And the second, of course, are these record high oil prices.
That's really a congressional prerogative. I really haven't.
On Capitol Hill Tuesday, sour rhetoric peppered Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke's testimony.
The economy has continued to expand, but at a subdued pace. In the housing sector, activity continues to weaken. The outlook for the economy, and thus for credit quality, remains uncertain.
President Bush sounded more optimistic, but even he expressed concern about the economy.
People are working. It's not as good as we'd like.
The consensus among economists seems to be that it'll be at least early next year before the situation improves.
So tighten your seatbelts and be prepared for a bit of a rough ride.
The price of crude oil actually dropped sharply yesterday, and that's because investors are worried about decreased demand from U.S. drivers. Maggie?
CBS's Jeff Glor. Thank you, Jeff. Joining us now from Boston with some perspective on where things stand is Art HOGAN, Chief Market Analyst at Jefferies & Company. Good morning, Art.
Good morning, Maggie.
Well, Jeff just mentioned some good news. Oil prices took a steep drop, and yet the Dow closed at its lowest point since 2006. Why yesterday? What finally came together to make that happen?
You know, it's interesting. You have to put that drop in oil in perspective if you can. We got up as high as $147.27. So to get back to 136 seems like something we should be celebrating. But in retrospect, that's still up about 50% from where we were a year ago. So clearly still a problem. So what happened yesterday was, for the first time in history, we had the Treasury Secretary, the head of the Fed, and the head of the SEC testifying in front of Congress and talking about just how bad things are and just what they think they need to do to make them better.
Is there an opportunity here?
Well, there will be. I don't think you need to rush back into this market. I think the thought process that the second half of 2009 is going to be better than the second half of 2008, and the market tends to be about 6 months ahead of that. So I think by the end of the year, there's going to be some great buying opportunities. But right now, as we work our way through earnings season, I think it's very early to try to bottom fish some of these stocks.
So what do you say to investors? Just hang tight? I mean, everybody's scared to put their money in banks now, in the stock market.
Well, I would say to investors, first of all, IndyMac is probably the exception, not the norm. And there will be a couple of other regional banks that made some bad decisions. But I think in general, feel safe that the market has had 11, bear markets, and we've survived since the World War II. We're going to get through this one as well. And I would say to try to stay the course, make sure your asset allocation model is what you thought it was at the beginning of the year, and then look for some bargains as you work your way into the end of the year.
All right. Appreciate the pep talk. Art HOGAN, thank you so much.